Steve Bowers welcoming you to Dialogue at E+ TV6 and a visit with Gene Pearce, who is from Jackson, Tennessee, Jackson, Madison County, who's been living in Florida, he tells me, for the last 13 years. Gene, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Steve.
And I am correct, right? Were you born in Jackson?
No. I was born in Weakley County up in Martin.
Okay.
My parents, that's where they were when they met.
We're here to talk to Gene about a book called Portraits of Jackson, but it turns out, Gene, you've written how many books?
23.
Okay.
Got
started how?
Well, strangely enough, as I said, my mother told me, of course, my parents are now deceased, but she told me, she said, you know, your dad said that you were going to write a book. And I told her, I said, I don't ever remember talking to him about that, but I always thought that I wanted to write a book. And basically, you know, if you're going to write a book or anything, you write about something that you know. And I was a director for the Tennessee Golf Association. And I just thought that we needed to write a history of the association. Well, it was so actually what I did was write a book on Tennessee golf history. And it turned out pretty well. I thought I wrote everything that could ever be written about golf in Tennessee, and it's a very, it actually was too big, too long. That's something I didn't know anything about writing that I have learned, that you need to stop somewhere along the way. I guess that's what it is.
Or do part two, yeah.
And but from that, other people asked me to write their histories, and all of the books that I have written have had connections to Tennessee sports, with the exception of this book. Now, there are a lot of sports characters in this book, but it was primarily written as and how that started is somewhere along the way, I got to thinking about, in fact, I remember the first time I'm driving back from Nashville. My wife is from that area, and I went to school at Lipscomb there. And in any case, I'm driving back, and for some reason, I just visualized a billboard introducing Jackson to people and using people that they would recognize, like Carl Perkins and Wink Martindale and Too Tall Jones and Casey Jones, and I can't remember now who some of the others were, but that's kind of what I visualized. And for that reason, I thought that the book should be titled Faces of Jackson.
Okay.
But I was convinced by one of my neighbors that's not the best title.
All right.
Says you need to find another one. So I come up with Portraits of Jackson.
Well, the book is called Portraits of Jackson, and it profiles how many people, Gene?
350.
350.
And I could have written another 100 in there.
Well, I'm sure they could be Portraits of Jackson too, right?
Well, no, I don't know about that.
Okay. So you got 350 people. All right.
Yeah.
You mentioned some of the obvious things you think of when you think of Jackson. Then how did you decide how far you were going to extend this, or did you keep finding new people you didn't know about?
Well, I had to cut it back to 350, quite frankly, because there were, and since that I have found people. How did I miss them? They should have been in here. Okay. But I mean, first of all, to explain, these are people who were either born in Jackson, were educated in Jackson, worked here, maybe even just briefly in Jackson, or those who spent a lifetime in Jackson. The people, like I say, there are many people, they were born here. They just happened to be born here. They moved away, then they became famous or whatever. Randall Wallace is probably the best example. He still has family. He has some cousins that live in Jackson, the Page boys.
Okay.
But I mean, Randall Wallace is, he's had quite a career. Uh, if and maybe people don't know who Randall
Yeah,
Wallace
yeah,
is,
certainly
but he
tell me
wrote
about
Braveheart.
Okay.
Braveheart was probably the best movie that he has done, but he's written several others.
So he's a screenwriter.
That's correct.
Wow.
Among other things, he's very talented.
Okay. Wow. So you get this idea starts evolving then, and so I guess one of the questions: what did you find out that you didn't know about Jackson? I've taken a lot of things.
Oh, so much. I learned more than anybody. I did the research, and I mean, to give you an example, the Franklin family in Jackson, very prosperous, very industrious people, and that's Walter Franklin, Ernest Franklin Sr. But in any case, they had a brother. They were all very successful in business and whatnot. Probably the most successful of them all, nobody knows anything about. At least I don't think many people know about William Howard Franklin, but he more or less went out on his own, and he took the talents that he had learned from his father and his brothers. They were in the carriage business. And from that, carriages, all of a sudden, when automobiles came around, as I said, there wasn't any carriage businesses, but they, as I said, adapted, and they got in the tire business. And in his particular case, he goes out on his own and a younger brother, and they went to Tampa, and he started with one service station. But from one service station, as I said, he got into all different things, just like the Franklins did. The Franklins were in all kinds of businesses at one time in Jackson. I remember I bought my first pair of baseball shoes from Franklin Sporting Goods. Probably nobody knew that Franklin's was in the sporting goods business, but they were in the furniture business, and they were in the tire business, automobile, just a lot of things. In any case, but William Howard Franklin, as I said, he knew recapping. And recapping came along, World War II,
right?
And it just blossomed. From that, if you can remember, there was a time. I mean, when I was growing up, we played with rubber softballs, hard rubber, and baseballs.
Right.
He's the guy who did that.
Is that right?
And from that, it went into athletic floors for basketball and all kinds of things. The product was known as Toughlex.
Okay.
And but it's an incredible story. I could have written a whole book about him.
Maybe that's come. Gene Pearce is with us. His book is called Portraits of Jackson. Profile of 350 people and a lot of connected stories. We'll continue this conversation right here at E+ TV6. This is Dialogue.
Hey, let's check out this park. Oh, wow, that's really cool.
To find a great local park or forest near you, go to discovertheforest.org.
Action!
Welcome back to Dialogue at E+TV6 and a conversation with Gene Pearce. He lives in Florida now, but he spent a lot of time in Jackson, Tennessee. He's from West Tennessee. He's written a book called Portraits of Jackson, a profile of 350 people connected to this city. In some cases, people that were born here that went on to fame elsewhere, other people that are still involved in Jackson, Tennessee, or were through their lives and careers. It's a cross-section of some amazing people, many that we may not know about. Gene, one thing that reminds me of, like with the Franklins or like with the Kisbers or whatever, if you're from Jackson, you know these names, but many, many people that move into this city will not be familiar with it.
That's correct.
And so it's a real insight into it. How did you decide how to organize this material, or how is it organized?
Well, it's organized. I have suggested to people that if they buy the book, to read the preface that was written by Wink Martindale. I love the way he did that. As my brother, who lives in West Virginia now, said, I really liked that. And I said, well, I did too. He said, I liked it because he wrote about how Jackson was when we were growing up. All of the landmarks, many of them are gone now. But that was, I say, read the preface first and read the first chapter that I write, which really gives you an idea of what's in the book. It tells about all of the different people who are in there and why they are. So it's broken down, business, politics, lumber, cotton, medical, all different sections like that. And there are some people that could have been in any of those sections. For instance, entertainment, there's, we have a tremendous amount of entertainers that came from Jackson and were quite successful. I had a friend in Nashville, and he said, I had no idea that Brother Dave Gardner was from Jackson. He said he was one of my favorites. And I said, well, he's just one of many like that. But basically, the book really tells the history of Jackson through individuals, because can you believe 4 people from Jackson, Tennessee, grew up in Jackson, Tennessee, were presidents of major railroads?
Okay. I know Mr. Tigert. Who else?
Well, Milton Brown was the first one.
Okay.
And that's way back when.
Right.
And I'm going from memory now. There was a gentleman named Hungerford.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you, I can't recall the other one now, maybe before we get through.
Yeah,
but there are, for instance, there were the major stock exchanges, cotton exchanges.
Okay.
New York, New Orleans, and Memphis. A Jacksonian was the president of all 3 of those.
Okay.
3 different people.
Who was it?
Well, it was once again.
When I think about M.D. Anderson and some of the others that worked with him.
Well, they were in the cotton business. They weren't really running the exchange.
Exchanges themselves. Wow.
But Thomas White Jr. was president of the Memphis Cotton Exchange. Wow. And he grew up in Jackson and then moved to Memphis and was quite successful.
We're talking with Gene Pearce, and the book is called Portraits of Jackson, and it's a profile of 350 people that are connected to Jackson, Tennessee. Gene, what most, you talked about finding out about the Franklins and other people, what most surprised you in doing this work?
Well, to find out that we had a Supreme Court justice from Jackson, and that goes way back, and nobody would know him. His name was actually, his name was Howell Jackson was his name.
Hey.
And, I mean, there were just little things. Another thing that amazed me, of those 350 people, 80 of them had connections with Union University or their predecessor colleges.
Okay.
Some of them goes back. And the most interesting one that came about was a fellow named Charles Norman Milliken. And he was from Arkansas, I believe, but he later became the president of what is now the University of Central Florida, which is the largest university in the country. And people probably don't know that.
Oh, wow.
But it is. And in any case, there was also just lots of people, as I said, that had union connections.
How did doing this work change your impression of Jackson then? Because I mean, we live here, and you know, and then you start looking back at our history, and just like with Mr. Tiger and the railroads or whatever, or the manufacturing of the Marathon automobile or whatever, or the boiler works was such a huge industry when there wasn't much in the South. I mean, the Jackson, I guess, had that's a real unique spin. And as you say, the institutions of higher learning, we had multiple.
But like I say, there was not a lot of industry. I mean, we were in the lumber, they were in the timber business,
right,
in cotton, and the railroads. That was it. Yeah. I mean, and Southern Boiler Works, God, you know, it could still be in Jackson if things had kind of worked out right. But I mean, I have seen pictures. You can go down to the library and look at pictures. That was a mammoth operation. Started by two guys, as I said, that came from up in the Pennsylvania, Ohio area, and they came and just started a foundry, and some of the, because of fires and first one thing and another, one moved to Texas, and then to Oklahoma. They were both very successful even after they left Jackson.
We're talking with Gene Pearce. His book is called Portraits of Jackson. We'll continue this dialogue at E+TVC.
What this place needs is better graduation rates.
What this place needs is less childhood obesity.
What this place needs is free help with taxes.
What this place needs is healthy breakfast.
What this place needs is fitness programs for kids.
What this place needs is early readers.
What this place needs is mentors for teens.
What this place needs is people to join us. What this place needs is you. To donate or volunteer, go to unitedway.org.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
Welcome back to Dialogue at E+TV6. We are visiting with Gene Pearce, who is the author of a profile of Jackson, Tennessee. It's called Portraits of Jackson, profiling 350 people that are connected with the city. Some who were born in Jackson that went on to great fame and accomplishments elsewhere, many people that are connected to the city. But it's a way of taking steps through Jackson's history, one person at a time. You tell the stories, and Gene has done an excellent job with this. Gene, what happened to you as a result of doing this work?
You say what happened to me?
Yeah, I mean, I take it your impression of things changed and you discover things. And I think when the Gene Pearce that was there after you got through with this was not the same one that started.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, basically, I learned so much. I mean, I don't know if they still teach history of Tennessee in the 7th grade, but that's what they did when I was going to school. I don't believe that we ever discussed anybody like the founders of Jackson.
Jackson, right? Okay.
Local history
is
I would like
a
to
real
see
gap,
this.
I think, in our education. Yeah.
If they're still teaching 7th grade Tennessee history, I hope, as I said, that they will use this book in some way. I think you have a better respect, as I said, for the past if you read this book and read about the people, as I said, who really built Jackson.
Well, you talked about that we had a Supreme Court justice to come from Jackson. I mean, if you take a look at these areas, we've had amazing business leaders and certainly internationally known celebrities and then athletes and all this other stuff. We've had many major league performers and all this that come through this area. It's just really an interesting thing, how much Jackson has touched people through this year.
Right. And hopefully I touched on all of those in some way. I'm sure that there are some that I left out, but I mean, I found out so much that I had no idea about. Of course, in the case of Jack Holland, there again, there was nobody in Jackson that was as well thought of it as Jack Holland. Yet probably the vast majority really just knew the Jack Holland with a high-pitched voice and had no idea, as I said, that he was a warrior. He won every medal you could win during World War II, with the exception of the Medal of Honor. This was a mild-mannered gentleman who wanted to teach English literature in college. He was a valedictorian of his class at Jackson High School. And in any case, he went on to Davidson College, but during the middle of that was when the war broke out. But he was truly a great American and really appreciated by him. There are two guys, as I said, that I heard some of these stories, so I didn't know much about them.
Okay.
But it wasn't too hard for me, as I said, to find out more information about them. But there were two guys, and I never knew either one of these, but there was Taylor Lawrence Jr. Now, there's another Taylor Lawrence in Jackson, but this was Taylor Lawrence Jr. His father was a mayor of Jackson. But he and a classmate, Arthur Stegall, left Jackson in the late 50s and went to Arizona, and they basically cornered the cattle market. They were the largest landowners at one time of anybody in Arizona. But it branched out from there. It is an incredible story. Just those two individuals right there, what they accomplished.
Wow. And you did
Jackson,
not know about
Tennessee. Beg your pardon?
Yeah, you didn't know about them.
I had heard about them, but did not know anything as to what extent and how successful they were. And I mean, I don't know how you corner a market in something, but they figured out how to do it. And anyway, that was just very, very interesting to me about them. And I also mentioned, I mentioned Jack Holland. There was another very good friend of mine, Elbert Stegall Jr. And he and Bob Conger are buried in the old Riverside Cemetery. I didn't even know that they were still using that, but there are family plots there. And so both of them were buried there. Albert Stegall, I played golf with him. Once again, the most mild-mannered gentleman you would ever know. And he was involved in 5 amphibious invasions in Europe. I never heard him ever mention being even in the war.
Okay. Yeah, many do not, right?
Okay.
I would think, Gene, that you would almost have to do another one.
Well,
I mean, because you keep finding out and you miss, because every thread leads to it, no matter what area you get into.
That's right. That's what happened. That
for
was the
example,
amazing thing.
In the entertainment business, I know, we think about Carl Perkins and many other people that are from it, but you find so many that I had not known about. And I'm sure there are many others out there that have connections.
I think that's probably true. And that's what happened. Doing research, and I found this in other writings. I've done, as far as golf, I am now in the process of writing, and I call these mini biographies or thumbnail sketches.
Right.
In the case of golf, I've done it on over 700 golfers. And some of them are quite lengthy, like on players like Kerry Middlecoff and some others. But as far as when I do research, and I'm doing research on this, I read about, and that leads, like you say, to somebody else that's maybe even more interesting than the original character that you were researching. That's just, that's the fun part of me. It's not work.
Being famous is one thing, being interesting is something else sometimes. And that becomes part of all this. The book is called Portraits of Jackson. Gene Pearce, Pearce, is the author of this. And the best way to get this, Gene, is on Amazon?
On Amazon, you can go to my Facebook page, and I try to put a little something about a person, like who is Lydell Sims or who is Jack Holland or so and so, and tell a little about them. And from that, all you got to do really is, you see the cover, all you got to do is tap that cover and it goes directly to Amazon.com. You don't even have to put in Amazon.com. Anyway, that's the easiest way to get it. And for some of my friends, if they want some copies for their children or whatever it is, or if they want me to sign one, if they'll call me, it takes a little bit longer to get one from me.
Okay.
It takes only, I am told, in fact, I guess I was the first one to order one from Amazon and got it just like that. And that's what other people have told me. It says 3 days at the very most.
Good. Well, Gene, it's good to see you. I didn't realize it's been 13 years, but it's great to have this opportunity to talk to you. Gene Pearce, Portraits of Jackson. Thanks a lot, Gene.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Stay with us at E+TV6. This is the place where the dialogue continues.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Or that the projections would be tornado next Thursday?
I can't do Thursday, but I can do Friday.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency.